Welcome back to Real Estate Without Borders. Today, I am joined by the lovely Dave Hutchinson, but not just Dave. We're also joined by an awesome guy by the name of Tim. But before we do that, Dave, how's it going? And maybe he can introduce our guests here.
Yeah, of course. Everything's good, man. We're back in Toronto. My lighting is a bit off today, so I'll apologize. We got a busy office full of realtors closing deals over here, so it's good. But yeah, Tim, honestly, man, me and just so you don't know me yet, but me and Dan communicate pretty much exclusively by sending each other your tweets. So
True story.
you might not know us, but we're very familiar with you, and it's super cool what you're doing. It's just like literally back and forth, me and Dan at least a couple times a week we'll be like, should we split this?
Mhm.
Are we going to buy this one?
Okay. Are we moving to Italy?
Yeah, it's like, dude, let's get the Italy passports going. But yeah, Tim, tell us about yourself. Let everyone know who you are.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much. Before we begin, just wanted to say thank you and thanks for the introduction. So I have a special connection with Canada and Toronto specifically. I actually, I spent a full summer about 15 years ago in Toronto. So yeah, I had great time and really good fun there.
Amazing.
So yeah, my name is Tim. I'm based in Dublin, Ireland. Although I spent about half of my time in Spain as well.
Cool.
So yeah, about 11 years ago, I decided to quit my corporate job at Microsoft and essentially moved to Spain together with my family, and mainly because of the lifestyle and the 300 days a year full of sunshine and all that good crack. So yeah, I suppose that's how it all started. The whole kind of, the first ideas about, the beautiful Spanish lifestyle and properties and so on. So
Super
yeah.
cool. That's cool, man. I kind of did something somewhat similar. I spend my my winters in Tulum, Mexico. Because I'm sure when you were here, you experienced Toronto is pretty much exclusively gray and fairly cold.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. Did you ever get yourself a Tim Hortons coffee? Have you ever had one of these?
I did, of course. Yeah.
Best coffee in the world, right?
Yeah.
Give us a
Coffee and a
quick
cigarette
review.
all in one.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it depends on what you compare it with, right? If you put it in, if you compare it to an Italian coffee,
that's right,
or Spanish coffee, then yeah, I'm sorry guys, but it's nowhere near what we expect, what we're used to here in Europe. But yeah, and of course the donuts, right?
Of course,
they've got some really really good donuts as well.
Yeah, that's
right.
True. That's how they get you there.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Affordahome, like your site and the journey and sort of like just tell me about like the business, like what compelled, how has it been? What kind of clients are you serving? Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah. So the whole story and the project started in July of last year. So my background is in tech. So I've been one of the founders in a startup for 9 years. So I've actually quit that company back in November of last year. And yeah, the objective was to really focus on Affordihome full time. But it all started in last summer. At that time, I already kind of had an interest in real estate. I bought my first property in Spain. I bought another one in Italy, which I flipped after a short while for profit. So that's how it all kind of started. And I always had a good eye for amazing properties, affordable properties with unique characteristics like sea views and everything else. So I said, look, now at that stage, I already kind of had lots of friends and family that asked me to help them with buying a property, a holiday home or maybe a retirement place and so on. Because I mean, who doesn't want to retire in Italy or Spain, right?
That's right.
So yeah, I decided to share one of those properties that caught my eyes on Twitter. Now, just so you guys know, before that, like I never really created any content. I think at that stage I had maybe about 150 followers on Twitter, and I was really, a content consumer as opposed to a creator. So I said, look, I'm gonna, try it out, share it, and see how it goes. And my first post went viral. All of a sudden, I've got this, a lot of people DMing me and asking me, "Hey, how can I buy this? Is this really the cost? Is it? Why is it so cheap?" And so on. So I said, "Yeah." I did a few more posts, and then I was thinking, I kind of, tested. I did some early testing and figured out that, like all signs were showing that it's, it could be a viable business. So I said, look, what can I do to try and monetize this whole idea? And so at the time, I think the whole model around newsletters and selling ads in the newsletter and so on, that they were only starting, at least here in Europe. I know in the States, the newsletters were kind of a thing, like a big thing already for a couple of years. So I launched a newsletter and grew to, I think, my first 5,000 subscribers in a couple of months,
Wow.
all organically through Twitter and through my posts, the posts you guys see. My biggest post in terms of engagement was viewed by 2 million people.
Wow.
And only from that post, I got almost 3,000 subscribers.
Wow.
So it was kind of,
That's cool.
yeah, I think this kind of proved some early, PMF, that there is definitely, interest out there and so on. So yeah, at the moment, what we've done after that, right? Because after iterating a few, the business model, and we were thinking initially to essentially try and monetize the newsletter through ad placements mainly.
Right.
But then we weren't happy with the ad copies, and we had lots of subscribers that were kind of pushing back and, hey, you've got a beautiful newsletters and all these clunky ads, they kind of don't fit at all. And then we've done lots of research as well. And essentially the way we work at the moment is really on a one-to-one basis. So there is a client that's interested in buying European real estate, and what we do is essentially, we help them end to end. So we rolled out paid consultations about 3 weeks ago. We've done 10 already. So that's where people jump on a 60-minute call and essentially ask all the different questions that they have, in terms of the whole buying process, the types of documents they need, visas, and so on. Although I'm not a tax advisor or a visa advisor, but on a high level, I can advise on that as well.
Yeah, we
Cool.
actually we have a visa advisor coming on the show, so maybe I'll connect you with him as well.
Please,
Yeah, because they do a bunch of that stuff.
yeah.
So okay, so before we dive in, because I want to hear more about this like paid consult and kind of like who are the people going through it and what are you talking to them about. Really quickly, you mentioned you bought a place in Italy. We've been trying to figure this out. We got a couple of guests coming on, somebody from Japan and somebody from Italy, about these, like, in Japan they have this thing called IKEA, which is like all of these 9 million empty houses that are just like you can get them for free. And apparently Italy has something very similar. What's going on with that? Like, explain. And can I actually go to Italy and just buy a house for $1?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, the only caveat is that you'll have to actually live in that place for a number of years, right?
Oh, you gotta live in it, not just renovate. You have to live in it.
Define
Yes.
live.
Yeah, so it really depends on the area, because all these schemes, right? The €1 scheme, the home scheme, is managed by the local council, right? And it depends slightly on the, based on the region and area and so on. So I think the very first one was launched in Sicily. And essentially what what the Italians are trying to do is that on one hand, they have a lot of, these abandoned houses. Most of them are really, require a lot of renovation because, they're destroyed and so on. And what they're trying to do is essentially attract new people. They're trying to bring these villages back to life. So and to be honest, they've been quite successful.
Are they in are they in good locations? Like, sorry to cut you off. Are they in like desirable-ish locations, or are they kind of like middle of nowhere, no one want to live there type location?
Most of them are in, small villages. They could be inland as well, so
Right.
quite far away from the coast and so on. But there are some, areas that are kind of, better located, I suppose. So again, it depends. It depends on the location and so on. Sardinia are running a similar scheme as well, and they specifically, after Trump has won the presidency in the States,
Right.
they specifically launched a scheme targeting Americans. Uh,
Well,
That's
like that's
smart.
that's most of the people like who listen to this show is people who want to take their capital and move it to other countries, right? Like and the easiest way for most people to do that is like it's so simple to just understand real estate in another country. It's just a house, right? It's not like you have to go and investigate businesses and learn like it's such an easy way if you're just purely investing the money to move it to a different country.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, I mean, these schemes, they're not for everyone, right? Because it's, as I said, there are certain conditions that you need to meet. So
Like
things
what?
like,
If you, yeah, yeah,
so
explain.
you need to have a project done for the place, the renovation project, right? I think you need to submit it within the first 4 months
Okay.
after you bought the property. Then, as I said, you need to live in that place. So you can't just, buy the place, renovate it, and then, come only on holidays. So
Right.
yeah, I don't remember the exact days, but I think there's a set number of days that you need to be there.
You got the Italian police outside your house with a camera watching to make
Yeah.
sure 108, 127 days,
Yeah,
128.
yeah. Yeah, but at the same time, right? I've heard lots of successful stories. So there is one Australian lady. So she bought 5 of those houses, and what
Wow.
she's doing is she's renovating them, and then she's operating them as Airbnbs, and they've been like really successful. So yeah, and another interesting fact, I actually read this the other day. So if the first and second wave of these schemes were mainly um, you know, these houses were mainly bought by Americans, Australians, and so on. So mainly foreigners. The third wave in Sicily, there is a lot more Italians. So young Italians that are kind of, tired of the city life
Hmm.
and they can work remotely and so on. So it's actually the locals now buying these homes.
Interesting. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit to what you mentioned in regards to the these consults. Like, who's signing up for these things? What does it cost, and what are the results that they end up getting?
Yeah. So the consultations are 60-minute long, and they cost 200. And it's really for people that that they want to buy a home. It could be either as an investment or as a holiday home, second home, or maybe even they're planning on relocating to that place, but they don't know where exactly. So it could be, we cover 4 countries at the moment: Spain, Italy, Portugal, and France. So obviously, even though all of these countries are in the EU, there are some differences. So this call is mainly, for people to ask any questions they have, if they are still undecided about the country or maybe the area. In Spain, for example, it could be the northern Spain or maybe southern Spain and so on. So it's really for them to come on and ask any questions they have. Once, yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna
So,
say, like, for a lot of the people in the U.S. or North America listening, like, because you're naming, like, you name 4 countries, I'm just gonna put this map up because it's like people, I think they don't contextualize properly. Like when you say that you lived in one place and you bought a house in another place, they're thinking that that's like flying from the U.S. to Europe or to
yeah.
South America, but it's not, right? Like the Europe is like about the size of the US, right? So I think that that's kind of
Absolutely.
an important thing for people to think about, like the geography of it. Anyway, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I suppose the beauty of Europe, right? Just to touch a bit more on that point. So even though it's a continent, right? There are lots of countries which are, even though they're neighbors, right? The countries are kind of neighboring countries. There is a lot of differences between all these countries. Different culture, different language, and so on. So I suppose that's kind of the main attraction. And again, that's not me saying a European, but it's what others people and how what's their experience after visiting Europe. So yeah, so once they've done the consultation, then they have the option of signing up to one of our packages. And what we've done is we've actually, given that I'm a SaaS guy at heart, so
Yeah.
I've worked for SaaS companies, I founded SaaS companies, and so on. So what we did is we actually opted for a subscription-based model, which is
Smart.
basically you subscribe to one of the two packages we have. So it's a basic package and then a premium package. And essentially what we do is we start by doing a comprehensive market analysis in the selected area. So let's say you're interested in Costa del Sol in Spain, but you're still you don't know exactly where, because cost, it's quite a
Right.
big cost. So we would help you decide, and then also we would actually provide a report with property listings.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's kind of the basic package, and you can cancel at any time, or the subscription ends once you've actually selected a property that you want to go ahead with.
Cool.
The premium package has the same things that the basic package has, but also things like off-market deals. So that's where I go and I engage my network that I've been building for the past 2 or 3 years. So it's me reaching out to specific realtors, asking them to to talk with their friends and with their network, and essentially try and find some really good and off-market deals.
That's
Um,
cool. Is it out of curiosity, because I'm a realtor myself, is there a local MLS, like a local website that yeah,
yeah, well, that's like a Zillow type, you mean? Is it?
like something like that,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, there's nothing like that in Europe, and that's the whole kind of difficulty, and the
of
whole
course.
because it's like if you were to do this on your own, you would need to probably monitor, I don't know, 20 platforms.
Right.
I mean, there are kind of the top two platforms in Europe, but there is so many other smaller ones. So yeah, it's not as straightforward, I suppose.
We have the similar problem. We have a similar problem in Mexico. There's no
Mm,
MLS, no centralized website. So it's like you said, it's helping people based off of the network that you've built,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
really cool. Good for you. Do
yeah.
you help people with the sale of their home if they ever were to say they buy from you and then maybe 3 years down the road, do you also help with the transaction of the sale or just refer it?
Um, Yeah, like one thing that I've done, I suppose, up until this point is I've actually had a few owners reach out to me and say, "Look, I love your posts. You get some really amazing engagement and so on. I'm actually selling my own property. Would you mind
Oh,
doing a
okay.
post up and see, perhaps if you can help me find
Yeah.
a buyer?"
Do you charge a marketing fee for that?
So I do if it's a real estate agency, but if it's the owner directly, up until now, I promised myself just to try and help them for free. So I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
charged anyone.
Now, would they be typically paying a commission to a realtor anyway? Like in that scenario, like couldn't you get licensed as a real estate agency and make a business out of this?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the avenues that I could potentially take as well. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Because like you've got to remember, I've only been doing this, since last summer. So it's not even been a year.
Yeah, fair, fair. Yeah, we're out
Yeah,
here trying to convince you to like start another business off the
Yeah.
side of it. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm just curious. Okay, so now I'm like, who are the people? Who's taking these consults? Who's the big buyers? Like, I know you mentioned in Italy, it's like the third wave, but like who are the people interested in buying properties all over Europe? Like, are you seeing a lot of American interest? Are you seeing a lot of interest from other places in the world? Like, what stood out to you? Any trends you can highlight for us?
Yeah, yeah. 68% of my subscribers are American.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So again, I don't know why. No, I've been reading kind of lots of articles about people, not everyone being happy with Trump winning the presidency, and the trade war. Investors are kind of trying to diversify their assets and maybe move some of their assets over to Europe. I've been speaking to some of my experts from my network, so people that deal with tax advisors, visa advisors, and so on, and they are kind of seeing the same trend. So there is a lot of interest from Americans,
Cool.
Canadians also. So
I
yeah,
think
it's
our wave
just
is coming. We just had our
yes.
election, so you're gonna get that wave in the next like maybe month
Yeah,
or so.
yeah. I've already had at least 10 Canadians reach out to me since last week.
I
Yeah,
could
I guess
imagine.
politics are probably your biggest lead source, right? Like I said,
Yeah,
every 4 years an election's coming. Let's go. Let's get ramp up the
yeah,
marketing,
yeah,
man. Half the people are gonna be pissed off.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, absolutely. Then you have obviously, I think the Europe is kind of deemed, one of the safest place, even though I know we have an active war at the moment, right, on the continent. But in terms of passports and residency, so it's the European passport is very appealing at the moment.
I think like mature economies as well, right? Like they're not emerging markets. I mean, these are some of the oldest economies in the world. Like it's
Yeah.
not sure maybe they're not growing like advanced economies are, but
Mm,
you can predict the growth. It's not like this major volatility that you see in a lot of these other
absolutely.
smaller up and coming
Yeah.
economies. So cool.
Is
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
you the areas you mentioned, was there a specific reason like you chose those areas? I'm assuming just based off of pure demand, but like that is that why you chose those areas? And then are you looking to expand across different parts of Europe? Yeah,
Yeah. So the main reason why we chose these four countries, it's really because we're passionate about this area. So the Mediterranean, it's
of course.
one of the reasons why we decided to move to Spain, to buy a property there, and that's where we want to live. That's where we see ourselves living. And then, yeah, we actually went with, instead of Portugal, initially we went with Greece, but then because there was a lot of demand in Portugal, we actually swapped the two countries. And I suppose Portugal is another kind of interested place because it's so Spain have actually canceled the golden visa scheme
Yeah,
at the
I was
beginning
about to
of
ask
April.
about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, dive
Whereas
right in on this
Portugal,
because we've talked about it a couple times on the show. I'm curious. Like, tell me what's going on there.
Yeah.
yeah. So what's happening in Spain is I mean, they've had lots of protests
Hmm.
recently, right? So the locals aren't happy with not just tourists, but also with foreign investment, right? And the main, I suppose, issue for them is really access to affordable housing.
Right.
Because of course, you have lots of foreigners coming in, investing in the country, which kind of means that there is less housing for the locals. Because obviously, their pockets aren't as deep as, for example, people coming from, I don't know, the States and so on. So they've had lots of protests recently. So places like the Canary Islands, the Balearics, so Mallorca, and a few other places, Barcelona as well. So what's happening at the moment is obviously there is strong demand, which kind of, prices are going up and everything else, right? Which is, normal for this kind of.
For for people to get like a golden visa, I
Mm,
know Spain, you mentioned that's no longer a thing.
yeah.
Did the other places you service, they have those kind of options for foreign investors?
Yeah, so the most appealing country at the moment for I mean that still have a golden visa, right, is Portugal. And so I mean it's not just the golden visa, but it's also almost everyone speaks English. Lisbon is similar to San Francisco. I've heard lots of Americans say that,
Really?
mainly because they have the bridge in
Right.
Lisbon, although on a smaller scale. So it's the Americans feel at home in Portugal. And yeah, so their golden visa, although they've changed it slightly, so version one of the scheme So you could actually invest in a property, you could buy a property and then kind of get residency. Whereas now the golden visa investment is no longer tied to real estate. So I think what they've done is they've changed. Now you have to invest into one of the areas of the economy. So it
Okay.
could be in an investment fund, in crypto as well, and so on. But it's I mean the rules around that are very appealing because and the minimum investment is $500,000, okay, and you get a Portuguese long-term residence, permanent residency.
Permanent residency. Wow.
Permanent residency, yeah. Even and the minimum amount of days that you need to be in the country are 7 days.
That's
Wow.
easy.
So it's kind of appealing, right, to a lot of people. And then after 5 years, I think you can apply for a passport.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then, so okay, so Portugal's offering, Spain has stopped it. Interesting. Is that like a main driver for people? I'm assuming. I'm kind of curious still to touch back on who. Like I know we said mostly Americans, but are these people investing more so for Airbnb, or is it an investment for a second property, or I guess maybe 50-50? Like, what are they purchasing for?
Yeah, it's a mix really. I mean, most people want to, if they're not planning on staying in the country, then obviously they want to rent it out for the for that time that they aren't there, that they aren't using it. But it's a mix. I would say maybe 70% of people are approaching this, from an investment perspective, and then the rest are looking to relocate.
Are there any Airbnb restrictions for foreigners, or like? Because in Toronto specifically, like it's not impossible, but the city's made it fairly challenging. Same with like New York, it's not
Yeah.
easy. What are the restrictions like for foreign buyers?
Yeah, so Spain actually they've rolled out some changes in the legislation. So in January of this year and then at the beginning of March. So essentially in Spain, what they've done is, and again, like to add, more difficulty to the whole process, is that they have national legislation and then they have local legislation, right?
Okay,
So that's kind of another angle where lots of people are have questions around these different legislations during the consultations that I offer. But yeah, the main kind of change that they've done is, so on one hand they froze the issuing of new short-term rental licenses, and then two, like in some places, let's say if you want to buy an apartment in a apartment complex, right?
right.
Then you need to get 60% of your neighbors to approve, to essentially say, yeah,
What, like
you're
sign off
okay
on
to.
something?
Exactly, yeah, yeah. Which,
Really?
given that the locals aren't happy with
Not gonna happen.
yeah, it's not going to happen. So I suppose the only kind of thing you can do is, buy a house, because then you won't need
Right.
to get the approval of your neighbors.
So that's only
So
with
yeah,
like a condo purchase or like a
yes, yeah, yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, no, they're definitely making it a lot harder. Now it's still possible. So one way around this is to buy a property with an existing license. But then again, it
Wow.
depends really on the region, right? Because in some regions, what they've done is they've actually stopped for the license to be transferred to the new owner. So you need to apply as the new owner. In
Okay.
some places, it's still possible to buy the property with the license. And so that's why
Wow.
it's, really my advice is, if you're interested in this, then definitely get expert advice,
Of
because it
course.
depends so much on the different regions. Whereas if we look at other countries, right, that's Spain. Portugal, on the other hand, it's not as strict. So, getting a new license, transferring the license from one property to another is still possible. But what you have in Portugal, because of this increased demand from foreign buyers specifically, the real estate prices are a lot
Yeah.
higher than what you
Right.
have in Spain. Yeah.
It's funny, Portugal is the only place in the world that saw housing affordability deteriorate worse than Canada since the
Yeah.
beginning of
Wow.
COVID. I
Yeah.
know this because I accidentally became famous in Portugal for a week I posted the chart about what I just said, but it said Canada had the second worst housing affordability, and then the Portuguese media picked it up and found
Wow.
because they were number one, and it was all over the news. I had some TV interviews there and just random stuff like that too.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely signs of what Spain has been experiencing, right?
So why isn't this happening in places like Italy? Because they don't have the golden visa program, and yeah.
Yeah, so Italy, so the cool thing about Italy is that they don't have such a big problem in terms of available housing. Okay. So there's thousands of properties on sale at the moment,
Okay.
which kind of, which means that there is properties, to essentially incentivize, buyers to come in, invest, buy them. The regulations in terms of short-term rentals aren't as strict. So it's really, Italy is, the way I see it is, Italy is where Spain used to be, 5-7 years ago. And then at the same time, when you add into the equation the Italian brand, the number of tourists
Sexy
growing
brand. You're
year
right,
on
man.
year.
It is.
Just the
Sexy
way he
brand.
said Italy is
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
man. I'm saying it wrong.
Amazing food. Well, the best food, right?
Right.
The pasta, the pizzas, and so on. So it's really like, from an investment point of view, Italy, I think, is probably the place where I would personally invest in at the moment.
Done. Sign me up. Let's go.
Yeah.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah, let's book that consultation, Foch, right after this
Yeah,
call.
for
Let's
sure.
do it. Let's do it. I'll give you guys a discount.
Okay, because but that's a good segue, because I was going to ask, could you give me a ranking of like top 3 places that you'd invest in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say Italy, Spain, and then Portugal.
I am looking at your post, the Ibiza villa,
Yeah,
10K a week.
yeah, from short-term
10K a
rentals.
week. Pull that one
Yeah.
up, Foch. 10K
okay,
a
I'll
week,
pull it up.
8.5 per week mid-season, fully booked April to September, 80% repeat clients, private beach access. What would something like that cost to purchase approximately?
5 mil.
Still
Yeah.
crazy.
So I visited that place
Crazy.
in last month. So I went there, took some video content, and then just this morning, right, I got the news that, this essentially we got exclusive selling rights for this villa.
No, wow.
Wow.
Cool,
And
man.
thank you. This is one of the villas that has been, they've had it in some really popular magazines, for millionaires. So it's deemed as a famous villa in Ibiza. So yeah, and it's been operating as a short-term rental for a good few years now, and it's incredible, guys.
Yeah, it
wow.
looks cool.
Is there, when people are purchasing, are there like financing options, or is it mainly cash when foreign investors are purchasing over here?
No, I mean, foreigners can get a mortgage, obviously not as much as a resident would. So generally, they would get between 50 to 60%, and then the rest would have to be in cash.
And is there stipulations around like having residency for an approval of a financing option, or no?
No.
Wow.
Because the part of the process is, before you initiate the buying process, you need to get a local tax number. And once you have that, then essentially you can open up a bank account, get a mortgage, and everything else.
Do you help the people with this as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not us specifically, but people from our
Yeah.
network. So I suppose the main. Yeah.
You didn't know you were coming on the call to pitch me and Dave on a consult, but I think you
This
did
is
a pretty
actually
good
the
job at
console.
it. This is how we
We
got our
gotcha.
free.
Yeah, no worries, guys. I suppose the main kind of where it all started, right? And I can do the pitch in 2 sentences max, right? So the traditional European realtor, they are representing the seller, right? Because that's
Yeah.
how they're making their money. That's
Right.
they get a commission. Whereas our approach is, and it came from our own experience, right? When we bought properties in Spain, in Italy, and so on. So there is no one really to represent the buyer, especially a foreign buyer, right?
Right.
Is there never buyer, like there's no buyer reps otherwise? So a real estate agent is just a listing agent in most European countries.
Correct. Yeah.
So
Similar
you're
to
becoming
Australia.
basically like the North American equivalent of a buyer rep.
Correct. Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, essentially we make sure that, you as a buyer, you'll be looked after and essentially supported throughout the process.
Yeah, the fee structure makes sense too, because like in North America now, you're starting to see a progression towards that becoming a fee-based service where agents can, like, in the US, they had this big NAR lawsuit basically where they made it so that listing agents can't pay buyer agents directly. So now you have to actually like contract your buyer agent. So you're just ahead of the curve with this whole concept, to be honest.
Yeah, I've heard from a few real estate agents that have been in this game for ages. So one thing they've been telling me is that I'm trying to disrupt the legacy sector.
Yeah, that's all
So
right. It
some
needs it.
Yeah.
absolutely, some of them have wished me good luck. I don't know if it was in a good way or a bad way.
I think what you're doing is really cool, man. And I think this is the main reason we started this podcast, honestly, is because we're seeing this new wave of this new generation of people who are much more willing or interested in investing overseas and seeing these like incredible opportunities and it not being such something that was so hard to access, right?
Yeah.
I think as everything's kind of coming to fruition and people have more access to certain websites or people like yourself, they're this whole dream of owning a home. And where is that for like most people probably don't know this exists, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
changing rapidly, and I think it's a lot to do with the current climates in some of these North American cities.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, the branding's so on point too. Like Affordahome, it's so simple. Yeah,
Genius.
you've done a great job. I wish you all the best too. I think like
Thanks so
it's
much, Daniel.
definitely, yeah. Anything that you want to leave our audience with before we sign off here? Like, where can they find you? Where would you like them to contact you?
Yeah. So we are currently working on launching a full website, because at the moment what you see here is really the landing page of the newsletter, which has been designed by my wife. So it's really myself and my wife running this business,
Cool.
and everything you see, the branding and so on. I mean, it's super basic, but it
Is it
does
just
the job.
Substack?
A beehive, actually.
Okay, true.
Yeah. So yeah, we are working on a full website that will contain a lot more helpful information. Hopefully some guides and essentially some free resources that will help people as well, at least at the beginning of their journey. But yeah, the website of the newsletter, which is 100% free, is www.affordihome.com. So feel free to have a look, and if you like what you see, subscribe. As I said, it's free and we plan on keeping it like this. And then I mean, if you want to go one step further, and if you're interested in maybe buying an olive farm in Spain or a
I saw
winery in
that one.
Portugal, yeah,
That was the post that I saw when I was like, I'm booking a call with this guy right now.
then feel free to get in touch. All the contact information are in each newsletter, and then I'm also on Twitter. So I'm specifically setting aside at least an hour every day to answer, to go back to every single DM I'm receiving, email and so on. So
Amazing.
I go back to everyone.
I just signed up for your newsletter, so I'm in.
Dave's
Awesome,
got big
Dave.
money too. He's buying a house like within the next year, guaranteed.
No worries, Dave. I'd be glad to help.
I'm gonna come down and visit you, maybe, and we'll do an in-person podcast, Foch?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, the
Let's
last
do it.
thing, I'm out of curiosity, because like you have tons of realtors, like we have a lot of realtors who listen to our content, right? And like if a real estate agent had a client, if I'm a US or Canadian realtor and I have a client who wants to go buy some real estate in Europe, is that something that you would take on? And typically in North America, agents get paid like a 25% referral fee by their other. Like if a realtor, should we send realtors to reach out to you too?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I'm open to any kind of collab and partnership. Like the way I see this is having an experienced network of different experts, different people, really helps the end user, the buyer, and so on. So happy to chat about this with realtors as well.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. Really appreciate your time. We'll have to have you back. I think I want to have you on at least once a quarter just to give us an update on whatever the heck's going on.
Let's do it. Thanks so much, lads. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks.
All the best. Bye-bye.